Did you know that most retired Americans, even after 2 decades out of the workforce, they typically only use up to 25% of their savings? Now, this is pretty eye-opening, especially considering that the post-retirement lifespan ranges anywhere from 20 to 30 years, with significant health changes happening much earlier. But Bill Perkins' book, this one right here, Die with Zero, when I read it, it completely reshaped my perspective on life and retirement. And you know what? I bet it's going to do the same for you, because he actually challenges the what we've been taught, the conventional retirement route, which is that save up and wait till you're 65 route. And he even has something to say about the FIRE movement, which, if you're not familiar with that, it's financial independence, retire early, which is really big in our community, the doctor community. And in this video, we're going to dive in the top 4 reasons why you should kind of rethink how you view your life and your retirement. And if you're new here, I'm Dr. Jeff Anzalone, simply out here to get you out of the rat race with passive income. Do me a favor, download the free passive income guide with the link below this video. All right, so let's get into the number 1 reason of the top 4 reasons why you should rethink your life and retirement based on this book right here. All right, so number 1 is this. Probably the most important thing, and people don't realize this. Life is all about time buckets. All right. Now, as somebody, myself, cruising along in my 40s, I can vouch that my body isn't what it used to be in my 30s and even my 20s. Let's face it, it's universal truth. Our health declines over time, think about this, it declines over time, limiting what we can experience. And some of these changes, well, we can predict, but a lot of it is unknown territory since we can't foresee the future. Now, the author, Bill Perkins, he recommends that we think in terms of these time buckets, okay? Rather than just what most people do. They just tick off items on their bucket list. And he says it's all about maximizing the experiences that you want to have in the time you've got left. Okay, that's really a shift in perspective. At least it was for me. So it's a shift in perspective. So we're focusing on living fully in each stage of life rather than just accumulating experiences without a plan. Most people just go right through life, but we don't think about and breaking this down into different buckets. All right. So this is my illustration, and I try to draw these buckets the best I can. So we're going to talk about each one of these very quickly. So take your 20s, for instance. All right. They're probably going to be the best years for physical activities. Okay. So we'll put right here, physical activities. I love to snow ski, but let's face it, the 20s was my best years, maybe my teenage years to snow ski, running marathons, starting a new career, anything like that. Physical activities in your 20s. Then comes the 30s. And what happens when you're in your 30s? It's typically when people spend a lot of time with their friends. They go on to start families. They have kids. They're enjoying their kids. They're running around with their kids. They're playing ball with their kids until they become moody teenagers, which I know too well about. Now, moving into your 40s and 50s, you're likely to hit the stride in your career, and a lot of times you're going to actually enjoy peak health before it starts that decline, okay? And it's especially important to be mindful about how and with whom you spend your time in this bucket, okay? Now, as your kids get older, so you may have little kids. My kids are in my teenage years right now, so I can attest to this. So as your kids get older, and they're going to want to hang out more with their friends, okay? They're going to want to hang out with their friends more than mom and dad. And when this happens, it's really easy to fall into the trap of just working more because you want to fill that time gap. And when you do that, you're neglecting time, a lot of times, away from staying healthy. I see this happen a lot in the 40s and 50s. And then when you step into your 60s, which is often for most people, this is the retirement bucket. You retire in your 60s most of the time, and people are starting to phase out of their primary careers. And when you get to this point, it's a whole new chapter. Now, in your 60s, this is the time to reflect on what you've achieved, okay? And then you look forward to enjoying the fruits of your long life labor. If you have kids or grandkids or whatever, but also you need to consider how you're going to make the most of this new phase of your life. Now, I'm pretty convinced that most of us, we really start feeling the toll of declining health probably by the time we get in this bucket to our 60s, unless you're, some sort of genetic gift at this stage in your life, and you're really going to start feeling the aches and pains. Me personally, when I got to probably my early 40s, that's when I kind of started to feel, some aches and pains, and I did some different things in my health to help account for this. It's just part of life. It's sad but true. We're getting older, right? Now, there are going to be a lot of things that we just can't do, or at least not the way we could a decade earlier when we're in our 60s. That's why it's important to spread out our adventures across these earlier time buckets if you can, rather than what most people do. In the book, he talks about this a lot. Most people just wait until, I'm going to do this when I retire in my 60s or 70s or whatever. Something else to consider: those unhealthy habits that seemed harmless in your 20s and 30s, well, those start to have a significant impact, compounded impact on your quality of life when you reach your 60s. Now, a good friend of mine, he's a primary care physician here in my town, and he once told, I was getting my physical there a couple of years ago, and he once told me that he's just seen too many patients suffering from preventable illnesses. And a lot of these have to do with these long-term habits, again, that you start in your 20s and 30s, like smoking, excessive drinking, and overeating. Now, if you can keep your alcohol intake moderate, quit smoking, quit dipping, and maintain a healthy weight, which unfortunately most people don't weigh themselves periodically, but even if you just do it once a month or every other month, so you're kind of tracking to see, instead of waiting once a year when you get your physical. So if you can cut down on all that and keep track of your weight, you're going to be adding years to your life, and you're going to be ensuring that these extra years are enjoyable. And I can attest to this, your future self is definitely going to thank you that. All right. Number 2, your retirement savings number may be lower. That's right, lower than you thought. All right. So we may not need to stash away as much money as you think for retirement. A study by the Employee Benefit Research Institute, they revealed a surprising trend among American retirees. After 2 decades of retirement, the average retiree had only spent anywhere from 11 to 25% of their nest egg. And for those that were on a pension, a mere 4%. So this book, it actually challenges us to see money as more than just a means to pay your bills or buy groceries, because that's what most people think. We go to work, we're in our job, we make money, we go to the grocery store, we pay our bills, we pay our electric bill, whatever. That's how most people think about money. But here's the biggest shift. And I was actually in Montana, I think in 2019 when I was reading this book. And that's probably the biggest shift for me, was thinking about, besides the time bucket part, but thinking about how the purpose of money is what we're using it for, just to buy groceries or pay bills or whatever, shifting from that to it's a representation of the time that we have left. Now, think about it. Think about your age right now, and how many good, healthy years are you willing to trade for just an extra $100,000 in your 401k account? Think about that. But most people, they keep working just to get that a little bit extra money. Again, thinking about these time buckets, is it really worth it? And Perkins suggests, again, that we shift our mindset from thinking about retirement as this particular number, which is what most financial advisors want us to do, right? So instead of this specific number, focusing on a very specific retirement date and age. Okay, I'm gonna retire on this date, and this is how old I'm gonna be. So after all, if we're always chasing like a number, like in our retirement account, I need $1 million, or I need 2 million, or 4 million, or whatever, that as you get closer to that, what's going to happen? And I see this time and time again, the goalpost keeps moving, right? It keeps going further, and a lot of times we're gonna keep aiming for this even larger amount. Again, it's probably unnecessary. Why? Because like we just said, we don't even spend 25% of what we have saved up. So if we continue to operate on what we've been led to believe, you're going to spend your final working years glued to doing what? Watching the stock market go up and down, thinking about, if I just hit that magical number, where in reality, Perkins actually states it doesn't have to be like this. Now, I get that having a big financial cushion, it can make your retirement more comfortable. But again, it's critical to balance that against the value, again, of our time here that we have left. So again, is it really worth sacrificing all those good years of health for just that little bit of extra money that, again, according to research, we're probably not going to use anyway. Everybody's financial situation is different and it's unique, so it's important to crunch your own numbers. It's all about finding that sweet spot between having enough money for a comfortable retirement and enjoying your life to the fullest right now, which leads us to number 3. To make the most of your money, you need to intentionally spend money on what truly matters to who? To you. Spend your money on what truly matters to you. Now, a key step in this process is understanding your life expectancy. Now, you can go online, and I actually did this, and you can find these free life expectancy calculators, which they go in and they're built on health data, which now it's based on AI now. It's pretty incredible how accurate it can get. And they look at all this health data that's collected over decades that can really give you a pretty good estimate. They factor in things like your gender, your BMI, your lifestyle risks like smoking, drinking, things like that. Now, I understand that it's hard to plan effectively for the future without having some sort of solid idea of how long that future might be. Now, once I put all this information in for myself, it predicted me to be like 90.2. That was my life expectancy. But you never know, but at least you've got something to kind of to shoot for. And once you have a sense of your life expectancy, then you can start figuring out things like projected future costs adjusted for inflation for those remaining years, however you have much left. And this calculation is going to help you determine a ballpark figure for how much you should be saving. Now, you've probably heard of the Trinity study, which it was actually published back in 1998, and it analyzed data from 1926 to 1995, and it looked at the success rates of inflation adjusted portfolios based on different asset allocations. And the key takeaway from the research is this: with most asset allocations withdrawing 4% annually, if you have a 401k or something like that, it gives you a near perfect chance of maintaining your portfolio's health. So think of the Trinity study, and again, this was in the book. I teach shifting from relying on a 401k and withdrawing out and having to look at a number to passive income. But I've got tons of videos on that. You can check it out. But for most people, this is how they operate. This is what he talks about in the books. That's why I'm talking about the Trinity study, the 4%. So think of the Trinity study as a general guide rather than just a set in stone rule. And it's all about using the data that we have to not only plan for retirement, but again, also to optimize our time that we have left here on Earth. Based on factors like your risk tolerance, insights from the study, life expectancy, your current assets, fixed costs, annual contributions, you can actually make an informed estimate of how long you might need to save before you hit that point of excess net worth. Remember, that's going to be probably the money that you're not even going to use anyway. Now, this brings us to the question that's probably bound to come up. Jeff, what about the kids, man? Well, what about setting aside an inheritance for your children, or maybe leaving a legacy for future generations? I get that's a valid consideration, and one that adds just another layer to the conversation about how we manage our wealth and plan for the future, which is what we're going to discuss in the last but not least reason you want to choose to be generous now, okay, not after you die. Here's what I mean. Perkins suggests, and actually I go back, and I was thinking about the time buckets and the other things were the most important thing, but what really blew my mind was how most people think about leaving money to their kids, okay? And it's almost just like everything that we've learned in the past has been wrong, or at least it has for me. I like to have options, okay? And Perkins suggests that if you're planning to leave something for your kids, inheritance for your kids, for instance, doing so early in their careers or gradually over your lifetime can have a far more significant impact. But what do most people do? And before I read this book, this was me, okay? What do most people do when you want to leave money to your kids? When do you do it? You wait until you what? Die, right? You wait until you die, then, I'm going to leave you 20% or 30% or whatever. Think about it. If your parents pass away in their 80s and they leave you money, which you'll probably be, in your late 50s or 60s, do you really need the money in that stage of your life? For most people, the answer is no. So for that reason, Perkins recommends that we don't wait until after we're gone to pass on this wealth, because the money is not going to have as much impact as it would if your kids were earlier in their life, in the life stages, like helping with college or graduate school, or if they go to dental school or medical school, or helping them buy their first home, okay? Instead of waiting again till they're in their 50s or 60s. So his recommendation is go ahead and leave them their share of whatever it is you were going to leave them in the first place. And then here's the sweet spot, okay? This is what I really like that he gave us a guideline. The sweet spot that you want to try to help your kids out, or if you're going to leave them money, is between the ages of 26 and 35. Why? These are the years that your kids are going to probably need money the most in those early years, instead of, again, waiting to the 50s or 60s. This book is, of course, as you can imagine, is filled with much more than these 4 lessons, which, again, it's why you should really rethink your life and how you should rethink your life in retirement. Now, there's all kinds of things in here, all kinds of lessons that I learned, but what I wanted to do for this video is just take the top 4 lessons. But again, there's probably several others that once you read this book is going to resonate with you as well. I encourage you to read the book, and do me a favor, comment on your thoughts below. And if you're interested in learning about another life-changing book that I've read, do me a favor, check out this next video.